Hey, welcome. My name is Rachel Smith, and this is the Natural Health Rising podcast. I am a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and the owner of Natural Health Rising, which is my online holistic functional medicine company where I help people who have autoimmune diseases, chronic illnesses, mystery symptoms, and a whole host of other imbalances restore their health by natural means. On this podcast, you're going to hear conversations between myself and other health experts on functional medicine and general holistic health. My goal is to provide you with the tools you need in order to help you rise to your healthiest and happiest self.
All right, David. So before we really dive into all things air quality, I do always like to start with everyone's kind of personal story. So how did you actually get into this field of work and get so focused on air quality issues?
It's a good question. I don't know if I've had that one before, actually, but yeah. So I work on the investment side. So we work with various technologies, and we kind of see the potential and what it could be. And when we saw how these technologies could fundamentally change how different industries handled air quality and surface sanitization, which we'll get into, we just kind of dove in. And that was about maybe 12 years ago. And through that time, I've worked with a lot of large clients and then just individual people. And I've seen the challenges that they dealt with and the money that they've spent and wasted. And it's just been kind of a journey for me as we kind of stepped into a focus on air quality. But yeah, from the beginning, it was all about the technology. So
Okay. I mean, how did this play a role in your life? I'm just curious if you've ever had any health issues related to air quality stuff or how important that is in your own life.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've got 3 kids, and so the kids actually, I've seen the impacts more than myself personally. We all interact with air quality differently, and we see that with a lot of our clients, where you could have 5 people in a home, and one person is like severely sick, and that's very confusing and hard for them because they don't necessarily connect how they're feeling with potentially what's in their air, or maybe it's when they go take a shower that the mold in the shower causes them to have severe reactions. But all that to say, my oldest has dealt with some respiratory issues, specifically related to pollen. And so we've taken that pretty seriously. We want to give him a space that he can recover and that he can sleep well and that he can go outside and be exposed and not have as much of a reaction. So kind of having that place to recover has been a real benefit for him, like a safe spot. And then he can go out and play in the leaves, and it's not that much of an issue. But if he's just constantly inundated, both inside and outside, that's where his body just can't naturally, process it itself. So, but yeah, I mean, I've also been surrounded by air purification equipment for a good 12 years. So I guess I've experienced the benefits of that. And one of the challenges with our products in industry is the lack of a problem is sometimes hard to define. So, we can get rid of viruses and mold and all this other stuff that you can never see or experience. And you certainly couldn't tell that it wasn't there. So that is a bit of a challenge for us.
Okay. Let's talk about like the basics of air quality first for people who don't really know. Can you tell us what is in our air nowadays, both indoor and outdoor, as far as like pollutants and things we need to be concerned about?
Yeah, I think the simplest way for me to understand it is we've sealed up our homes very tightly. So in Arizona, you've got a lot of heat issues. So you want the home to be very energy efficient. But part of that process is we've also trapped things inside. And so if there's no natural mitigation, so there's no counterbalance to that, things like off-gassing VOCs, mold, anything that we bring into the house in some ways is going to be trapped in that house. And so the indoor air is going to be significantly worse than the outside air, even if you're in a city. So, obviously something like diesel exhaust is something a lot of people will think of as air pollution, and it is, but the indoor air is actually significantly worse on average. And so that's things like particulate pollution. So those are like the physical things in your air. If you think of a human hair, the diameter is about 100 microns. we are most focused on things that are around 2.5 microns and smaller. And that's a term called PM 2.5, but it's very, very small. And so the smaller it is, the harder our body's natural defenses are, and the harder a mechanical filter, like a physical filter's ability to trap it are. So the smaller things in general are the ones that we're going to be most concerned with. But the air quality contaminants that you might deal with are going to be very different than, your friend or anyone else that you know, because they could live in an apartment downtown and their neighbor smokes cigarettes and they don't, and they're very sensitive to that. But the cigarette goes straight through the pipes or the walls into their apartment, so they're dealing with their neighbor's cigarette smoke. Or maybe you're highly sensitive to mold and you have mold in your HVAC system or a bathroom, and you could be reactive to that. We also speak to people that when they go into their office, they can't control that environment, but they feel really sluggish. So they kind of just have this kind of brain fog. And some of that could be the content of their work, but some of it could be air quality. There's a lot of factors, obviously. But so particulates, obviously biologicals. This last year, this COVID has been basically inundated on the whole world about how something like a virus can spread through the air. We have coronavirus testing going back to 2016 and looking at airborne virus control for many years. But obviously something like a virus, bacteria, both in the air and on surfaces, things like MRSA, C. diff, VRE, those are a little bit more hospital related. But then the other one is going to be chemicals and odors. And a lot of times you'll see the term VOC, like all caps, that's volatile organic compounds. That could be anything like new car smell, paint smells, air fresheners, lots of sources of VOCs, including cleaning chemicals. So like we do work with hotels, and the worst VOCs we've ever monitored is actually after cleaning a hotel room. So chemicals would be another category.
Wow.
But then there's lots of other things, of course, but those are some general categories.
Right. And then those can even come from things like you bring home a new mattress, your furniture, all of that stuff too. I think people forget about that sometimes. Yep. And what would you do in the instance of, I guess either shopping for that thing, or like if you brought it home, what would the next step be to make sure you're not inhaling that,
right,
or avoiding it in general?
Yeah, for a lot of factory related processes, they can leave basically chemicals that are going to be continuing to release from that physical item for some time. It could be weeks or months, or I think I've seen up to a year, where it's releasing small amounts of chemicals. And that could be just that it was transported from China and they had to spray with pesticides, during the route, or maybe it's the plastics, like from the injection molding, or, whatever it is. There's lots of places for it. Certainly when you first unbox something, if someone has high sensitivities VOCs, you could leave it in another room, leave it outside if that's appropriate, because a lot of times it will peak and then decline in how much it's off-gassing. I mean, our preferred method would be various types of mitigation. So you can either absorb it with like something like carbon. Carbon's going to absorb chemicals. You can break it down using various technologies. But, the simplest way would, I guess, be to put it in an unoccupied room or outside when appropriate. But really, you need something that's going to take care of it. So you could always open windows when appropriate, and that's a question we actually get a lot. This is a side tangent, but should I open my windows? And it's like, well, it depends, because the air quality during rush hour could be 20 times worse than an hour before. And obviously, I'm out in California, the air quality during wildfire could be 1,000 times worse. So your air quality outside is going to vary a lot throughout the day, throughout the year, based off of events outside. But on average, it's going to be cleaner than your indoor air. And certainly there's other factors to consider. But yeah, so there's no easy answer to dealing with off-gassing other than you need some tools at your disposal, I guess. And certainly if you can limit the source. So like, for instance, the hotel example, my favorite travel tip is just to ask hotels if they have any hypoallergenic options, because we work with a lot of high-end hotels and they install products like ours in a portion of the hotel and they don't tell anybody about it. And it's kind of silly to us, but I understand their perspective. But basically, they don't want some of their hotel rooms to be seen as dirty. So they don't advertise that they do have rooms that they use hypoallergenic cleaning chemicals. They have special fabrics, mattresses. They kind of outfit the rooms for people that are more sensitive. But if you just ask them, a lot of times they have those options available. They may have air purification equipment available. So just making some smarter decisions can kind of give you a good baseline. If you don't enter into a hotel room that's been smoked in, obviously, or has a lot of cleaning chemicals in it, that's going to be a good start. Same with at your home. If you can bring in products or use paint, or there's lots of ways you can reduce the VOCs initially.
Mm. Wow, that is I have never thought about asking a hotel if they have special
A lot of
cleaning
them do.
things, or
A lot of
that
times it's
is
like, so you walk in a hotel room and you're like, this smells like mold. I can't stay here. And they're like, oh, don't worry. Let me bring you to this room over here, which is hypoallergenic, and this is what we do. And so they kind of use it as a I don't know, backup for people that complain, have issues with odor, whatever it is, so that they have it available. Or they may have actual air purification products basically waiting for someone to request them. Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to do that next time because I am definitely a
Yeah.
sensitive person.
Yeah. And it's always a good information if you ask them and they say, what's hypoallergenic, what's air quality. If they've taken no steps, they've not considered it, that's another indicator. And it doesn't matter how expensive the hotel is. We work with some of the most expensive in the world, and they don't have any air quality solutions. It's like the last thing they consider.
Right.
So.
Right. Do you have any other travel tips, or is that kind of like the big one when going into hotels?
I mean, certainly if you can, it's not always possible, but if you can start from a cleaner slate, that's better than trying to clean up something that's already dirty, right? If that makes sense. So if you could find a hotel, a VRBO, a car, whatever, that's cleaner. So kind of doing some due diligence in the beginning is a better start. We have tools that you can take with you, that we would of course advocate for as having another option. We even have people that are highly sensitive to something like cigarette smoke that have successfully slept in smoking rooms using our products. So, I mean, that's not our recommendation, but having some tools at your disposal to deal with what you're going to be stepping into is a good idea, because at home, you could become very used to the smells, and your nose becomes basically blind to them. We hear it a lot with people with pets, where they leave and then they come back, and then they're smelling what their pets smell like, what their house smells like. But if they're in that environment all the time, they don't smell it. And so when you're in a hotel room, it's fresh, it's new. So having some products to protect you in that environment makes sense to us. But same with cars, Ubers. Obviously you're exposed to a lot of things you can't control. So finding ways to mitigate that is a good idea.
Mm-hmm. What are a lot of ways you see this affect other people's health? Like, do you have people come to you and have certain symptoms and then they start using your air purification products and then those go away? Or what is that process normally like?
Yeah, so I mean, our focus is the environment. So reducing your
Okay.
exposure to environmental toxins. And we're a bit careful to attribute direct links to how you feel, health. Some of that's liability, some of it's
Mm-hmm.
body's really complicated. So this is one piece of the puzzle. And we really love to work alongside a lot of doctors that specialize in environmental toxic exposure and helping people walk that path, because there's a lot of factors involved. But yes, we love to hear stories where the kid wasn't sleeping before, and now you clear out all the dust, the allergens, whatever it is that was triggering those symptoms, and now they can sleep better. We love those stories, and we've heard a lot of those over the years. But your health is obviously complicated, and for some people, what's in your air is either going to be triggering you or pushing you over the edge. And we just want to create a space where you can naturally detoxify, where you can reduce your exposure and live a healthier life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Something like sleep is a complicated one, because you might just be watching too much news, like you might just be too stressed, it's
yeah.
it's not like there's no silver bullet to something like that. But air quality could be a factor, because like if your room is covered in mold spores and mycotoxins and you're allergic to mold, you're probably not going to have a great sleep, right? And so that's just one factor to consider. And for a lot of people that are kind of journeying down the health path, you might think of food, water. Air is kind of like that, one of the last things you come to, and you're like, well, what's in the air that I'm consuming. And it's about the equivalent of you breathing a pool worth of water, so swimming pool every day. That's
Wow.
how much you're breathing in. You just don't realize it. And so yeah, it's just one factor to consider. But
I think it's a pretty important factor.
we
if
do
I'm
too.
if
Yeah, we
I'm
do.
breathing at a
Mhm,
pool filled with
mhm,
air, a
mhm,
pool full of air every day.
mhm. Yeah. And we
And
see the extreme examples. So like not everybody is going to be as sensitive as a lot of the people that I speak to basically every day that have severe issues, a lot of health factors historically, as well as like high sensitivities. And so we see really horror stories of how air quality and what's in the air can affect you. But,
yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of people that listen to this podcast, that's my population that I work with. And
sure.
so these people are chronically sick, and oftentimes there is some sort of environmental exposure that plays a
Right.
role in that. But
Yep.
like you said, it's everything. There's never one
Yep.
answer. It's the food, it's the water, it's the air,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
all the things, right? Stress. um so for somebody who is kind of checking all these off their list as they're working down through their health, and they're like, okay, how, in what order do I need to work on my air quality in my house? Like, what's the first thing I should do? What's, as far as maybe starting with like our regular air filters, like what do we look for there? And then if we're adding in additional purification systems, like what is that whole process?
Yeah, I mean, it could be very confusing. First of all, it's a confusing market full of a lot of exaggerated claims and fancy lingo that doesn't mean anything at all. So, I mean, probably one of the first things to do is try to identify your goals, and I would say start with your bedroom.
Okay.
Because the whole home, we have products that can cover an entire house, but that can be a bit overwhelming to start with. So you can always start with a bedroom, try to create a safe place where you can sleep, where you can recover, and kind of go from there. But if you're this is a huge conversation. So I mean, like
We've got
if
some time.
yeah, yeah. So I'm trying to think where to start. But yeah, like our first questions are basically trying to figure out who are the people in the house, what are
Okay.
their sensitivities, what are their histories, and then are there any factors to consider? You know, do you have known mold? Are there bad, dust storms in your area? Do you deal with particulate issues? Do you live by by a road? Do you, does your kid have, issues? So like kind of understanding those factors, then we
Okay.
can start to give them tailor fit solutions, because you can easily spend thousands of dollars on products that are not even going to make claims to do what you're looking to do. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we can just think of like a couple scenarios then. So let's go with mold has really been piquing my interest lately, and it's been coming up
Mhm,
on some of my clients' organic acids tests and things like that.
mhm.
So let's say someone has mold in their house of some form. Now there's tons of different kinds of mold, right? So what do they do? Like
Yes.
what besides remediation, like can you live with certain molds and then just use, an air purifier to assist, or what does that look
Yeah,
like?
yeah, definitely. I would say mold is something that you can deal with, even if you have high sensitivities. It's not something to overly worry about, but it's also something to take very seriously and to mitigate, because it can really destroy people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
But mold is going to be in about 100% of homes, and it's going
Okay.
to be outside. So you're going to naturally be exposed to mold walking out the door, and you're going to be exposed to indoors. It's just the concentration. So how much of it, and then how sensitive you are to it. And we rarely recommend testing for mold, just because you can spend thousands of dollars to come back and say, I have mold,
Okay.
and there's a lot of situations where it makes sense, but sometimes the mitigation of it is actually cheaper than the complicated tests for it. And there are do-it-yourself testing methods that are a better solution in most cases than hiring like a local, mold remediation person. And certainly if you have a leak, if you have known issues, we recommend doing all those things. And we have customers that they basically burn their house down and everything they own and move to a new place, and that's like more power to them. But we also have people that they're stuck in an apartment, they can't move, their landlord doesn't care, and they got to deal with it. and you can. So there's ways that you can, again, protect your bedroom first. That'd be the first place I would say. If you can't do anything else, start with the bedroom. Try to get you protection there, and we can get into some products and technologies.
Okay.
But then, one of my also recommended steps is get like $3 humidity sensors, because just checking for humidity is such a more affordable and practical way than taking like a $500 sample to look for mold in your bedroom. Because like if you have high humidity in a room, you can figure out pretty quickly whether that's a bathroom that's not venting properly or whatever. That's like a really quick start. And obviously dealing with visible mold, all those things are recommended. But with our technologies, kind of our perspective with mold is we want to kill it on a surface as well as in the air. So if all you do is put a HEPA filter in your bedroom, that HEPA filter, assuming it's a high grade HEPA, is going to be trapping airborne spores. It's not going to kill it. It's not going to suppress its growth on a surface. It's just trapping what's already there. And that's only doing so much. So you spend $1,000 and now you're just trapping some spores in the filter, and then you have to change the filters regularly. If it doesn't have a carbon filter in there, it's not even dealing with the mycotoxins. So mold's going to be producing spores and toxins, mycotoxins. And then if you manage to kill the spore, now you've got dead mold spores. And those are really, really small particulates, and you can still breathe those in and they cause you issues. So you got to kill it on surface. You got to deal with it in the air. You got to deal with the toxins. And you got to deal with the dead mold. And so we have technologies that can do all of that. And one of the first places we're going to look, so you're in Arizona, I'm assuming you have AC in your house. That AC system is going to be one of the most common sources of mold. It's a damp, dark environment, and distribution sources for mold. You've got this like basically network of ducts. We can leverage that and flip that around and basically convert your AC system into a purifier that both kills mold on surfaces as well as in the air. That's our preferred method, because mold's going to be in those places you can't necessarily see, and you want to suppress it before it becomes an issue. And so there's definitely ways to do that. But yes, just using a bunch of HEPA products, you're going to spend so much money, and you're not going to hardly ever reduce the spread. Now, we do recommend and sell HEPA for people with severe mold issues, alongside other technologies that can suppress the growth and kill it.
So redoing the entire air system basically would be.
Well, you can upgrade it. Like for say 2,000 square foot house, you can, with 3 bedrooms, 2 stories, you can do the entire house for about $900.
Oh wow!
That's it for life. So you don't have to like replace it or anything, but just upgrade it. There's various technologies you can put in there, but trying to make sure you have a healthy HVAC system, whether that's a heater or an AC, is going to be one of the I guess most comprehensive solutions. You can protect your air without that. Say if you're in a condo and you don't have access to that, or maybe you don't have central air at all, that's fine. But if you do have a central air system, that's something to look at to make sure it's healthy, essentially. Because if there's mold in your AC system and you've got a vent above your bed, like that could be the source of mold. So you got to try to make sure that at least is healthy. And whether you do that through routine cleanings or putting technology in there, there's lots of ways to do it. But
so for someone who's in an apartment or a condo and doesn't have the ability, like maybe they don't own the place, or maybe they move often or something like that, is there a standalone purifier that could be just as beneficial?
Yep. So then the real challenge, so like an apartment situation where you can't tackle the AC, you have to have plug-in units, and typically a higher quantity of units is going to be better than a large single central unit. Because if you had, say, 2 bedrooms in the apartment with the doors closed, you're going to want a unit in each bedroom and then a unit in the common areas at the minimum, because you've kind of got these different zones and the air is going to mix. But if you're closing those doors often, you're going to need separate units. So yeah, small units that just plug in the wall, like something like our Air Angel is going to cover about 300 to 400 square feet. It's going to kill mold in the air and on surfaces, deal with the toxins and a lot of other things. But yeah, you're just going to plug that into the wall in that room. And then if you're going on a long car trip, you could take it with you in the car, you could take it to a hotel room. So yeah, you just have those plug-in units. So
okay. Awesome. You guys actually have something that I've been traveling with for a couple years now. It's like a small, the germ defender.
Okay. Oh, the germ difference.
I
Yep.
bring that in my hotel rooms
Mhm.
just because like if I'm traveling on a plane because it's so small, I'm like, well, this will help me. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No,
I
absolutely.
do that.
That's a good unit for it. Yeah. So either that unit or the slightly larger one, the Air Angel, are going to be the ones we recommend for something like travel, just because they're
Awesome.
very practical.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
With the humidity sensors, is there a specific one that you recommend or like what's the humidity level that you would be worried about?
I mean, I think the first step is just to figure out what your humidity is, and it's not going to be one number for your whole house, right? So the humidity in the bedroom or the bathroom or the basement is going to be different, and it could fluctuate a lot throughout the day. Um, and there's different humidity levels that are going to be both desirable and required for different things. So like we work with like wineries where they've got an aging room that has to be above like say 60 for the aging process, but mold likes it above 60. So sometimes, like the humidity level might be higher, but you got to mitigate it. But if you found a pocket of humidity in a bathroom that it was often elevated, like say above 60, that's a good place to look for leaks, make sure the vent's working, put in technologies to mitigate. But just kind of starting that journey of thinking, how is my air changing throughout the day? Where is the environment nice for mold to grow? Because it's going to find its way there eventually.
Mm,
Mhm.
okay.
So
And then so we basically just went through one scenario. What's another like really common scenario? Because I know you said like there's all these different routes that you would go.
mhm.
What's another common thing that you see and would recommend for somebody?
So like something like aero allergens, dust, kind of general pollen allergies.
Hmm.
You want to make sure, again, for all these topics, a healthy HVAC is going to be one of the first things we look at if you have that. But other than that, mechanical filtration for someone with high sensitivities to chemicals or allergens can make a lot of sense, especially for the bedroom. So that's going to be a HEPA product above H13 or H14 and carbon. So those are going to be both good technologies for someone with either high dust allergies, they've got like a cat that is shedding a bunch of hair all the time. So that's where a mechanical filter, something I think of it as like a chain link fence, it's going to be trapping what's big enough. It can make a lot of sense for someone that's dealing with that, so physical filters are something we don't normally recommend unless you're very symptomatic with something in the air and you need a quick removal. But
Mm,
other than that, taking technologies like ours that can suppress it, both deal with particulates and allergens in the air all the time, that's going to be a good idea. But yeah, so we see a lot of sick buildings like at work. We deal with a lot of medical applications in, say, hospitals where they're trying to reduce exposure to bacteria. Certainly something like a school classroom, you've got a lot of things to consider. It's
mhm.
not just the square footage, but what's happening in that environment. So you've got a lot of kids coming and going. Obviously they're sneezing on everybody and touching everybody, and the whole thing. And so having technologies in that space to mitigate, um, and just improve the air quality in general. But yeah, we see people with, they marry someone they love, and that person loves animals, and they happen to be allergic to those animals, and so they've kind of married into a household with cats, and they're severely allergic to cats, and so we get issues like that a lot as well. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it varies. Um, Pretty much every week, I see something new as far as air quality issues. To be honest,
Okay.
whether it's I just got one where they've got bats in the attic and they can't get rid of the
Oh my
bats
gosh.
because it's like a legal thing. And so you've got bats that are, flying in. They're living in the attic, and so lots of scenarios. We've had situations where someone is highly sensitive to chemicals, and yet their neighbor smokes a pack of cigarettes every day, and the inlet for their bedroom's HVAC system is that patio. So the cigarette smoke goes directly into the bedroom. And
Mm.
so like in a scenario like that, having a high grade um, you know, a MERV filter with carbon in the HVAC, because like you've got like seconds where that chemicals are passing through there. And so something like that is another option, so lots of scenarios. Wildfire
Yeah.
smoke, post flooding, We see a lot of things.
Oh my gosh. Um, what do you think about certain plants? Like, do those really help? I mean, I know the NASA study with all the different kinds of plants to purify the air.
Yeah, I think it's great. I was actually just talking to someone this week about it. She had a lot of plants in her office and it was working great for her. But just the one consideration I would really take a close look at is mold, because mold is going to be prone to grow in a lot of those plants. And especially if there's not proper drainage, there's too much water, there's leaks, that's where you can have some mold issues. Because we work with commercial growers as well. And they've got a lot of plants in a greenhouse or something. And their biggest issue is mold. So just having some ways to mitigate that. But yeah, in general, plants are going to be great. We want the indoor air to be more like the outdoor air, and the plants are a big factor in that outside.
Okay. What about like the actual regular filter? If I was to go to just like a regular store, go to Walmart or Home Depot or something and get the typical filter, is there anything there that is decent that's going to help me, or what should I pick up by? Okay.
Yeah, especially things like someone said they had a lot of dust, and they, we're not going to recommend that you go to Costco and buy one of those, but if you had one, like a lot of times I say don't turn it off, you can use it for sure. And there's some competitors that I won't name on here, but you can certainly ask us and we'll talk to you, that they have very nice looking air purifiers. And I have I know people that have the air purifiers because they look really cool, and there's nothing wrong with that. And they have some technologies in there like germicidal UV light, which is good. Some of our products have that. It has limited, it has limitations, but it's doing a good thing. So if you have a store-bought filter with that you have to change the filters, I would just make sure that you do that regularly, or else it can become a detriment. So that filter will get clogged, and at some point it will not be helping your air. It could be making it worse. So doing regular maintenance on those is important, and understanding the limitations. So I mean, you could have the highest grade HEPA filter on earth, and it's not going to do anything with chemicals unless it has carbon in there, and that carbon's going to wear out regularly. That HEPA filter is going to be great against particulates. It's not going to have any impact on something like a bacteria or a virus for the most part. And it's certainly not going to suppress mold on a surface. So just kind of understanding what you have, what technologies are in there. And a lot of times it's difficult because almost every week we get people asking us, so what do you think of such and such product? And it's like, well, we've never heard of that one before, but let's look at it together. And you go on the site and it says all this like fluffy stuff that doesn't mean anything at all. It doesn't mean anything. They've just made up words, and they haven't said like what the actual rating is. Like HEPA is a third-party rating system. So all this stuff with like ultra super duper HEPA doesn't make any sense. There are rating rankings beyond HEPA, and HEPA is specifically designed to grade a filter based off of certain efficacy. And so, yeah, a lot of that stuff is just fluff. So trying to understand what you have and how you can properly apply it is great. But yeah, there's a lot of good products out there. In general, I think one of the biggest challenges our industry has had is overpromising. So, something could have a good effect in a very small area, and you're thinking, hey, this is covering my entire downstairs. It's not, so I guess not attributing too much before doing your research on it. But yeah, you can absolutely. A lot of those products have great technologies in them.
Okay. But yours is for sure the best. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, there's a reason we have designed them the way we have and invested so much in their development, that we do favor our products. But, we are quick to say they're very complementary to a lot of other ones, especially if you have physical filters already. We're not going to say get rid of them.
Right.
We have an H13 HEPA on our site. There's nothing fancy about it. There's nothing unique about it. It's an H13 HEPA. That's what it is. If you already have a HEPA like that, great, keep it. It's the other technologies that are going to really make the difference. So you can always stack them to get greater benefit. Because air quality, it's not this like silver bullet checkbox, because it's going to change a lot throughout your life, throughout the seasons, and having more tools at your disposal is going to be a good idea.
Right. Well, I think this is a good place to start to wrap up. If you could leave the listeners with one action that they could take this week that will help them live a healthier life, what would that be?
That's a good question. I mean, beyond listening to this podcast, they've already done a great job, So I would guess say take something from this and apply it to your own house and try to figure out how can you improve your air quality just a little bit, just try to figure out how can you do it a little bit. And whether that's taking 10 minutes to look at what you already have, checking, hey, I changed my filters in my HVAC system for 2 years, just maybe take 5 minutes and think about what you have or haven't done for air quality recently and what you could do, especially when it comes to your bedroom. So yeah, we always say start with the bedroom. So
that's great advice. I think that's great because I can't tell you how many times I've asked people, hey, what kind of air filter do you have? Or a question like that. They're like, I have no idea. Like, when's the last time you checked it? So step one, take some time to check things out and then start with the bedroom. Okay. Awesome.
Life is very full. And so just taking a minute to just think about it is probably the best first step, is what you haven't done, what you meant to do, didn't do,
the thing that got pushed down the list long ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking the time to chat today. Is there anything that we missed, any additional information that you want to give the listeners that's super important?
I mean, I would just say it's all so individualized. It really is. That I would say just reach out with questions, do your own research, and try to figure out what's right for you. Because there's so many topics we could dive into real deep on this, but there are solutions. It doesn't have to be this huge worry. It doesn't have to be a massive expense. There's ways to improve your air quality, and just take your time.
So where can people reach out to you or the company, and like if they have questions or want to learn more about how to optimize their air?
Yeah, for us, it's just hypoair.com, hypoair.com. And if they wanted a consultation, just do hypoair.com/consult. That'd be a phone consultation. We'd be happy to talk through any individual questions, issues. Here's my home. I've got 10 dogs, and this is what whatever it is, whether it's a home or a business or any question, we're happy to talk through it.
Okay. Is that like a complimentary call, or do you?
Yeah.
You just call and figure out what you need. Okay. That's amazing.
Yep. And, life is busy. So if you want to just email questions too, that's fine. So whatever works. But, we know it can be confusing and complicated, but yeah, we really stress that it's very individualized. We do not recommend the same thing for everybody.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good, Rachel. Thanks for what you do.
Hey, thanks for watching the episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure that you like the video and leave a comment and share it with a friend who really needs to hear it. Because when you share this information, you're also going to help other people level up their health. And if you or somebody else you know wants to work on their health and they're looking for a functional medicine practitioner, feel free to reach out to me to apply to work together. Thanks for watching, and keep striving to become your healthiest, happiest self.